Here we are at about 8,500 feet. This is the heart of the upper montane zone, and you can think of the upper montane as extending from about 7,500 to 9,500 feet in elevation, bleeding into the lower montane below and the subalpine above. And if you look at some of the scene behind me, hopefully you can make this out, you'll see that there are a number of different kinds of trees. Those include some of the things we're familiar with from the lower montane, trees like the ponderosa pine and the Douglas fir, as well as a number of newcomers. One of the most prominent of those are some of the aspens behind me. They're one of the few real substantial deciduous trees that we get in the Colorado Rockies. One fairly interesting thing about the aspen is that it's all connected at the roots. In fact, some of the largest living organisms on planet Earth are colonies of aspen that just send up new shoots. We see those shoots as individual trees, but it's all connected. Other trees that we see in this area include such things as the Colorado blue spruce and lodgepole pine. We'll meet the lodgepole pine and talk about it in a little bit more detail in just a moment. A lot of this, though, we can really think of as mixed conifer forest. Here we see a lot of emphasis on microclimates. We might look, for instance, at slope aspect and say that over on the far side of the valley from where I am, there are a lot more ponderosa pines on a south-facing slope. Whereas over on a north-facing slope like what's behind me, we see a lot more mixing, a lot more lodgepole pine. We also see a lot more of a role for forest succession, where one tree has established itself, grown up, grown old, and other trees become more established in the shade of an initial tree. So here we're looking at forests with a lot more age to them, rather than strict regimes that are dominated by one species, periodically having a fire go through. Here there's a lot more room for different tree species to succeed one another. So I wanted to take a moment just to introduce yourself a little bit more up close and personal to the lodgepole pine. Here we see a pretty small lodgepole pine, but right behind me there is one much bigger one. It's surrounded by a lot of aspens, however. And that's not the case with all lodgepole pine forests, as you'll see in our next stop. You'll notice, though, that this lodgepole looks a lot like a pine. So these needles occurring in bundles of two, rather than being the spiky needles that we might see on a spruce or the flat needles on a Douglas fir. Lodgepole pine, when they have grown up a bit taller, end up literally looking like a lodgepole, having one straight and solid trunk. And we'll see an example of a very dense lodgepole pine forest in our next stop.